sales tax, except it's retail sales tax that many of your listeners are used to paying.
Sure.
When they shop. It's a tax on value add all the way through. So let's say you buy coal to make steel. The steel company pays a VAT on the coal, adds value for steel, and the steel buyer pays a VAT. So it goes all the way through to the consumer. And it sounds, like some horrendous thing we wouldn't like at first blush. But ultimately, if you do that in tax consumption, you can take the burden off of income tax, get the same tax revenue, and get a massive trade advantage, which we haven't figured out because we're the only country without it. We basically have a 17% tariff worldwide applied against us, and other countries subsidize their shipments to us by 17%.
So when Donald Trump has made these declarations, which a lot of people scoffed that obviously weren't his supporters, but when he said this, a lot of economists, not Pat Choate that comes on, and he agreed with a lot of things that Trump said, but a lot of other economists noted that he was just talking out of his left side of his mouth, and he had no knowledge, no understanding of how that worked, and that we were actually getting a good deal.
Well, to the extent economists were dismissed this tax thing, they need to talk to some of my members who actually ship overseas and compete with the imported products here. And business people that actually know how business works, i.e. Donald Trump, who actually buys materials from foreign nations and building those buildings overseas and knows how to ship things back and forth. I mean, he, as a business person of doing all that amount of business, you understand how that works, what your taxes are, because you need to know where you stand at any given moment, especially when you're, building big buildings and a lot of money's on the line. Right. So, I mean, Paul Ryan is right when he talks about this thing. This thing is called border adjustability of taxes.
Okay.
It sounds like you want to fall asleep when I say that. I know.
But explain it to us. What is that?
But it's basically like a territorial tax. In other words, we tax the sales here in our U.S. tax jurisdiction. The tax doesn't apply if we export because it's consumed somewhere else. It goes somewhere else. But where imports come in, the tax comes on when the imports come in. So it's border adjustable in that the tax falls off when you export and it comes on at the border when you import.
That's
what border adjustability means. And that has the trade implications that I discussed before. Although the GOP plan is kind of strange, doesn't do exactly the VAT thing.
I see. What are they proposing that you're kind of scratching your head at this moment, where you're just not crazy about?
So what they're proposing is a cash flow tax, a destination-based. That's kind of like border adjustable. So if the destination is in the U.S., it's taxed. If it's the destination-based, if it's outside the U.S., it's not taxed in this way. Domestic sales have tax applied, and you can deduct costs that were domestic costs of goods and services. Pretty straightforward. I have $100 million in sales, $90 million in costs, $10 million in pre-tax income. That's what the tax rate is applied to. The weird thing is, import costs, goods and services, are not deductible, which frankly I kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent you export, the gross from your export sales is not taxable. Now that has kind of weird results because let's say, Keith Allen Inc. has 100 million domestic sales you sell within the U.S., and you have, just to be extreme, all 90 million of your costs were import costs.
All right.
And to your mind, you have 10 million in pre-tax income.
Yeah.
But you can't deduct the import costs. So under this plan, you have 100 million taxable income,
mm-hmm.
which at 20% is a $20 million tax bill, which
Yeah.
exceeds your pre-tax income as we would really consider it.
Right.
Now, that's a big sledge to push onshore production, which I really like, but it gets to be extreme and it's going to be causing weird behavior.
Such as, what would the weird behavior be?
Well, let me give you the Keith Allen Inc. example when you're an exporter. That all your sales are exported at $100 million. All your costs are domestic at $90 million. Again, it kind of looks like you have $10 million pre-tax income. But you can deduct your $90 million in domestic costs, and none of your $100 million in export sales are taxable. So you have a $90 million tax loss.
Huh.
And you don't pay anything, which, again, seems kind of cool in a way.
Yeah, it does.
But, yeah. But
there's a but.
Yeah. What we'll start seeing probably is companies who, number one, companies who produce net tax losses under the system will start marketing those tax losses to companies who would otherwise pay tax to zero out their costs. So Keith Allen has 90 million tax losses. Somebody else wants to buy 40 million of those tax losses. Somehow they can do it, or they want to merge with you to generate more tax losses to zero out their tax. Or let's say you have 10 million of tax, profits for tax to pay. And Keith Allen Inc. just says, well, hey, let me just buy $10 million of domestic wheat that's otherwise going overseas, sell it for no profit overseas. That increases my cost by $10 million. I don't have to recognize the $10 million in sales. It's a sham transaction, which basically zeroes out my tax liability.
That's right.
So
there's loops. Yeah, we can get away with it. Yeah,
I mean, there's good ways to do what they're trying to do. I question nobody. I've talked to Hill. I've had 30 staff meetings with people, tax staffers on the Hill, and when I say this, I don't get any response except, huh.
That's about it. So it's not like they're totally disagreeing, but they're not saying that you're crazy either.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is this is really good for our trade competitiveness, for producing onshore, to combat the tax cheating-like behavior of other countries. I like all that, but it's kind of extreme, and it can cause some weird behavior like what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, the tax staffers on Ways and Means, the Committee of Jurisdiction, haven't had a response, but I think that they have kind of a core tax staff for that committee. I haven't been able to talk to them, so maybe they have a response. But right now it seems very, a lot of good, but some pretty strange stuff that they need to work through.
And ladies and gentlemen,
I like that they want to do U.S. production.
I was going to say, Michael Stumo is our guest. That's the voice you're hearing on the other line. Coalition for a Prosperous America. He's the CEO of that company and knows what he is talking about. But looking at this is because a lot of Americans are hearing things like I'm hearing things. I'm a small business owner and curious about, what the future is going to hold. I mean, we hear, from Donald Trump saying that, businesses are going to thrive under our tax laws, and it's going to, flourish, and more companies are going to come back overseas. We're going to incentivize companies, but we're going to penalize companies that decide that they want to do business overseas. And the reasoning is, he says, is that he wants to do this because he wants to create American jobs so they don't go someplace else. But the fear of a lot of folks on the left and some on the right are thinking, well, that sounds all well and good. However, you're going to be hurting the little person, even the middle class, because guess who's going to have to pay more money until we can actually build all these things?
Yeah, I agree. I and my organization, we not only want to level the playing field, we'd like to tilt it in our favor. We're good with that.
So paying a little bit more at the store, you think ultimately will make us more prosperous?
Well, if you take basically our real unemployment rate, which approaches 10%, and you put people back to work, that's a big wage inflation and a big consumption boost. So the number one, putting people back to work, it ignores the benefit side and the wage inflation, which we've had stagnate for about 30 years because we've offshored everything.
Right.
They don't pay attention to that, number one. Number two, to the extent there would be some consumer price impact, how do I say it? It is not nearly as much as those who hyperventilate about it would think. For example, if you just look at cornflakes, there's about, 10, I don't know the exact number, but it's quite small. Let's just say a dime worth of corn in cornflakes.
Mm-hmm.
If you increase that by 20%, you've got 12 cents of corn in cornflakes. You look at coffee, something we can't produce here, like coffee beans. How much coffee bean cost is in a cup of Starbucks coffee? Quite small. We
True.
do know that there are import price changes all the time now because relative currency valuations,
Weather, all sorts of fluctuations, stock market, you name it.
You don't see a high correlation between import prices changing from those other factors and consumer retail prices.
True. So you think it'll just adjust and level out?
Yeah, and we know that with other countries, when they have done something similar with a border adjustable tax, like implement a VAT, there's not a one-to-one pass-through when they have increased import costs that go to the consumer.
Michael, can everybody win?
That's not new.
Can everybody win? So if you're, say Mexico, we just met with Trudeau, and it seems like that relationship is good, but he says the problems have been south of the border, been with China, big deficits there between those big trading partners. Do you see them being a little bit nervous with Trump, with making those changes?
Oh, well, sure. Now, understand, Trump isn't sure on this particular Paul Ryan tax plan yet, but I think, they'll come to some agreement. Mexico's a net exporter. They export to the U.S. more than they import. But we actually have about 10 countries that drive our trade deficit of goods of $760 billion, which is really big. And Mexico's probably 8th or 9th. China, Germany, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, India. Others are bigger than Mexico, but Mexico is a bit of a problem. They have to rebalance so they're not relying on the U.S. consumer for growth excessively. And that's going to be a bit of a painful transition for them, but they can't rely on us forever because it makes us poorer.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question when we come back. We're really happy to have Michael Stumo on to help us understand some of these things. And Coalition for a Prosperous America, where can we find you online? Where are you at? ProsperousAmerica.org. ProsperousAmerica.org. Go there now. We'll be back. If you look in your crystal ball, I am curious, think about this. Main Street, will we see a resurgence of that in the future with businesses? We're going to actually walk down Main Street and actually do business with, not having all these stores closed anymore. Will things return again? We'll ask them.
Help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people, for the people, for the people is there.
For the People is on the air for you. Each day we strive to tell it to you straight, not watered down, so you can know what's going on each day. Our show is different from many of the others on air. We're not afraid of the PC police, and we explain our position, at the same time understanding the left's position and what we can do to further a conservative agenda for America. For the People is listener-supported and relies on listeners like you to help us get the word out. So, if you like what we do and want to help For the People, sign up today at our website at forthepeopleshow.com. That's forthepeopleshow.com. Your support allows us to report the news fearlessly and guarantees our survival on the air. As a thank you, we'll send you our monthly newsletter with commentary and money-saving tips. Can we count on your support? Thank you for helping America. To become a For the People member, log on to forthepeopleshow.com. Now,
welcome back to The Cat Show. Up next, we have Nico. Nico is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right. A group known especially for their sunspot sleeping, ball chasing, leg rubbing, and of course, companionship. Just look how she struts.
It's like she owns the place.
And see how she curls up and cuddles her person.
The pitch on her purring is simply perfect.
Nice one.
Fantastic cat. But really the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Nico is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.